Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to this Back to Basics session for covering the Gemba Docs module. My name is Nehal Samra. I'm the General Counsel and Legal Director here at Kaizen Synergy Law Firm, and I'd like to welcome you to the start of these Back to Basics sessions that we are going to be running each week. These sessions are really designed for Gemba admins and heavy users of the Gemba compliance dashboard. We are going to be drilling into a number of modules each week, and today's topic is the Gemba Docs areas. We are going to be covering some of the really core back to basics functions. It is the same training that we actually give our staff in the support desk as well too, and we are opening this up in 2022 as well too. If you do have any questions, by all means raise it in the question panel. We are going to be working through the dashboard. We are going to assume that there's some things that you know about in terms of actually being able to log in and the likes, but this is actually really focused around going back to the specific areas, starting, I'm going to say, from almost scratch around it, and really giving you the tools to be able to use the Gemba dashboard within your agency very, very effectively. So with that, we are going to be covering off some of the core basic functions each week. We're going to be looking at the legal legislative requirements, where some of these modules actually stem from as well too, and what is some of our reasoning in how we've actually designed some of these functions for agencies, and also what some agencies and how some agencies are actually using some of these modules incredibly well within their agencies itself too. So, as always, we'd like to pay our respects to the elders past and present upon the lands on which we all meet. While this session is being run by webinar, we are recording it and it will be made available within your Gemba system for future reference as well. So when we look at Gemba Docs, essentially what we are going to be looking at today is setting up containers. We're going to look at setting up folders. We're going to be looking at permission levels within your agency. And that does cause a little bit of confusion until we actually explain how the permission levels are actually set up. We're going to be looking at policies versus contracts. We're going to be looking at alerts and what to do, as well as how to find different versions and some of the more recent developments that we have opened up, which is called making a document public and also e-signatures. Now, some of the more common uses that we've seen in Gemba Docs across the boards is really to be used as for policy and procedure registers, obviously for contract registers and workflows as well too, but also more and more we're seeing this being used for boards of management where agendas and minutes are being loaded into Gemba, and also e-signatures for new employees, onboarding new employees, board members and member sign-offs on documents, as well as external use for clients and contractors, and how this links to the notice board is some of the core functions that we will cover off as well. Now, some really key basic areas before jumping in. Gemba itself is designed as a single source of truth for your agency. Gemba, by its name, actually means the source of truth or where quality happens. And that's actually the management definition of Gemba. The idea of the whole 360 area is that we're giving people access to specific information that they need when and where at a particular time. Now, Gemba is designed, and this is really important to be aware of, Gemba is designed on a person's position. The only module that isn't designed around this, and I'm just going to switch the audio across as well too, because I can see that it is a little bit sporadic. Give me 1 second just to switch the audio across and just improve this audio sound. So give me 1 second while we just pause. Here we are here. And let's just pause the session for 1 minute while we just check our audio. There we go. We're just checking our audio and making sure, here we go. We just checked the audio and just making sure that we do have all of the presentations up and ready to go. Here we go. Sorry about this, everybody. We are just checking. Here we go. Lovely. Thank you very much. Right. So essentially, Gemba is designed on a person's position, and that's universally across the whole system. The only exception, as I just mentioned to that, is the HR module, where it is the part that's actually linked to a specific person's position, and then it's linked to their position directly. But we will cover off that in a separate period. But essentially, the whole system of Gemba is designed on a person's position and where they are based within the agency. You'll also find that it doesn't matter of who they report to or your organizational structure. So most organizational structures, when we do look at and set these up, is that you'll generally have a program manager and a number of line reports to people that report to them. Equally, when Gemba is also set up, it doesn't matter what type of structure you have, because the way Gemba is designed, and I'm covering this because this is where notifications and escalations in the Gemba docs is actually important, and it's actually designed to follow your organizational structure. So if you have an organizational structure that is quite linear and one person reports to one person who reports potentially to the CEO, or whether you have a centralized structure where everyone reports to one person, or decentralized where one person reports to or multiple people report to multiple positions, essentially it doesn't matter because it follows it in the organization profile of Gemba, and that's really where we set up each of the reporting lines, and we will cover that off in the upcoming weeks. But just a take-home message for today is really around Gemba docs will follow your organizational reporting lines and also the position that you have. And I'll show you what that looks like in a minute. It also will follow, and I'll talk about this around groups and teams. So apart from just having a document, let's say a policy that you might have and you want all staff to be able to view it, but you might have a quality committee or you might have a risk committee that essentially is responsible for looking and reading different documents and updating the different documents from time to time. Or if your structure is a little bit more complex and it's matrix based, as you can see in the top right hand corner, then you might have multiple people sitting in multiple positions across your organization from week to week. So idea is that Gemba docs will follow the organizational structure that you have within your agency, and it doesn't matter what sort of structure you have. Now, when we talk of document management lifecycle in Gemba, you can essentially, once you compose it, capture, review the document, approve the document, retrieve it, and archive it if you like as well too. So it does allow you to manage the full document lifecycle in the system. What you will also see on this is that it doesn't matter if you save over the top of the document. If you've got the permission to do so, you can actually save directly over the top of a document, and you can still see the previous versions sitting behind that document as well too. So the idea is here that you can actually manage your entire document lifecycle within Gemba. You can archive right across to archive the document or unarchiving the document, and every time somebody does something in Gemba docs, there is a footprint left behind in what we call the audit logs. So if someone archives a document and then another person that's got the permission to do so unarchives a document log will be kept behind around that particular document. Now, when we look at the legislation surrounding this, what we have is a number of key legislations. There might be the Archives Act. There might also be a number of key different legislation. But one of the most important pieces of legislation that your agency needs to be across is what was introduced back in 2006, which is actually called the Crimes Document Destruction Act. And what it did was actually insert a new criminal offence for the destruction of documents that could be used in evidence or litigation. And when they said litigation, they meant any legal proceeding. So essentially, you've got this challenge since 2006, whereby you need to ensure that your documentations within your agency are effectively managed. It means that you need to have a system in place that allows you to manage the destruction, disposing, concealing, rendering of documents, as well as ensuring that all documents are managed within your agency. And it does actually impose a serious criminal offence under the Crimes Act, and this specifically covers document management. Now, as we're starting to go into Gemba Docs, you will find, and I will cover this off as well too, is that Gemba Docs can be linked to other parts of the system. One of the key parts around this is the compliance calendar. So if you load policies and procedures into the Gemba Docs area, you will find the alerts are actually managed through the compliance calendar. And the idea of that is quite simply that management groups can essentially print out the calendar once a month and look down to see, well, how and what are we meeting all of our compliance obligations from our contracts or policy reporting and the likes. You'll also find that you can use the notice board to distribute policies out. So once you've got a document in Gemba Docs, you can then send that out via the notice board and check to make sure that people have read it. You'll also find that Gemba Docs can, through things like public links, be opened up to your website. You will find that it can also be utilized across different areas of Gemba. And also anyone accessing the document from any different device will always see the latest version of what you are expecting them to be able to see. And that also includes board members, for example, that have been given permission just to view their own agendas and minutes if you decide to do so, or external contractors where you're sending out contract signatures or contracts to be signed. And I'll show you where you can do that as well too. And again, once they sign it, it sends back a new version of that document and loads it back onto the system with the date and the time that it has been done. Now, on it, again, you'll find that obviously Gemba is designed as a mobile platform. So again, if you're accessing the Gemba Docs through your mobile devices and people are working from home or the likes, then again, it'll give you the latest version of those documents. Now let's jump in to the dashboard and walk you through some of the core training requirements of the Gemba Doc system. So I am just going to log in using our demo site, and obviously to access Gemba, which you all know, you can get to gemba360.com and it'll bring up the big blue circle. Now, when we go into Gemba Docs, we can click on the button and that takes you into this space here. You'll find that firstly, as I mentioned, you can, if you're an administrator and have permission to set up the Gemba Docs space, you can actually add any new category or folder that you like to the system. For most users, what they will use it for is around searching for policies or the likes, and they can do that by utilizing the search bar in the top right-hand corner. And you can see I've just clicked on that now, and a few things have come up. So if I select, let's say, policy, and I click on search, then the policies will come up. Now, if I've got read and write access to this, I can simply click on the link, and what comes up is the and different policies that I have on this system. And if there is one here, for example, let me bring one up. Let's click on governance, governance and the privacy policy, which you can see in front of you. And I click on play. Here we are here. And I've got a policy document that automatically loads for me directly here. And if I've got read access, then it'll give me the read-only version of it to be able to be viewed. Now, let's go back. If I wanted to create a new category in this Gemba Docs area, and I'm going to call it, let's say, back to basic training sessions. And you can literally call it anything you like. And once you do that, you can simply click on add category. Now with this, once I've done this, I can then see that it will come up and it'll put it in alpha order. Now you might ask, why does it come down the bottom here when rather than sorting it initially in A to Z? Now the reason that it does this is that it does sort out by A to Z order. However, in this one here, I've actually dragged and dropped the folders into the order that I want. Now, what I mean by that is quite simply, if I wanted to have these folders, these category folders in a specific order, and I am an admin like all of you are, I can literally grab this and drag it all the way up to the top and reset the order that I want these folders to be in. And if I wanted to do it here, you can see quite simply I've dragged and dropped it back up to here. So I can actually move folders around, and even though it will automatically start to sort it in A to Z order, as let's say, and I've been a quality manager at a number of different community services in a past life, when I looked at the document systems, I actually went, look, I actually want to sort, let's say, policies and procedures. I want to put it right at the top. I want to make it as easy as possible when people are navigating in to find the different documents and the like. So I'm going to change the order of the folder structure to how I want to see it. So you can actually do that. Now, if I wanted to then add in a specific another folder within this, I can simply go in and I'm going to type in Gemba, Gemba Docs. Let's say I'm going to set up next week's one, which is around the risk register, and I can create a folder, and here it is here. And I'm doing this all live right in front of you from the front end of the system. So essentially what you're actually seeing here is actually how we would actually do it when we set it up for agencies. So from here, it gives me the permission levels. Now, with this, one of the questions that we get asked a lot is obviously around permission levels. And how do I set the permission levels? How do I check the permission levels for different people and for different groups? Now, remember, I did say to you at the start, and let me just go back to my slides. Thank you, here we are here, is with this, and I'll just go back the other way. When we look at the structure of the permission levels, it is based on a person's position to start with. So let's say I've got a manager that I wanted to have a look at. I can go into the permission levels, and how I do that is using the arrow on the left-hand side here, and I can go to the cogs. Now, this immediately shows me the permission levels based on a person's position, and I can see them here, all listed here, and you can do the same thing. So all we did was go to the arrow on the left-hand side, look at the cogs, and it brings up the permission levels. Now, if I wanted to go in and let's say I wanted to check, for example, Tony's position up here, I can select Tony, who's a compliance officer. And in this case, I'm going to give Tony read-write access to the policies and procedures. I'm going to go down and see that in this case, one area that he's got access to, the board management, and I'm going to make it no access around this. However, there's also some other documents that I wanted to give him access to in this case, and let me open this up, is in this case, some of the program area documents. Now in this case, I can give Tony read-write access, but I only wanted to give Tony access to the outreach teams folder, not the support group. So in that case, I can actually select those. So you can actually individualize which specific containers, folders, or documents. So if I went in here and I could say, right, I didn't want to give him access to the delegation client privacy policy here, and I can select that. So you can actually specifically drill down into individual positions and identify what categories, what folders, and what documents you want to give each individual position access to, if you like, to do it that way. Now, with it, once you've done that, all you need to do is scroll down to the bottom and click Save. And that will automatically instantly give and change Tony's permission levels in Jemba Docs. Now, with it, if I go back to the slide, that's good because that works and sets the permission levels for individual people on or positions on the Jemba system. However, what happens if we have a team? And we can see it down the bottom here. So I want to actually do this globally. So let's say if we have an all staff team, I really want to give all staff access to make sure that they've got the read-write access to the policy documents, for example. But I don't want all the staff to have access to the contracts or board of management documents. I want to check this to make sure that that's the case. So in the permission levels part of Jemba Docs, if I simply scroll down, you'll see that we've got a next section here called Teams. And if I click on All Staff, which you would all should have an all staff team on that, and I can see they've got a mix of different permission levels here. So what I want to do is give them read access to, let's say, just the policy and procedures. I want to give them no access to everything else. And in this case, I'm going to give them actually no access to everything else on here. I only want to give them access to the policy and procedures, and I want to have them only be given read access here. Now, in this case, what Jemba will look at is to say we've now got two different groups here, or two different issues here. We've got an all-staff team. So let's say Tony's in the all-staff team. He, in that profile, would have no access to all those documents, but in the all-staff team, he would have access to just the policy and procedures. What Jemba does is looks at, firstly, what permissions you have individually as your role within the agency, and then also looks at, well, what is the teams that you're also in as well too? Now, you could be in multiple different teams. So Tony, in this case, if I go back into our organization profile, and this is where the groups and teams are kept, Tony could be a part of the all-staff team. He might be in the COVID reporting team, but he may not be in the risk management team. And I can also see here that there's no board of management team as well too. So if I wanted to create the team board of management, and I'll show you what this is, I can simply add in now a board of management team. And in this case, I'm going to go in and I'm going to select two people that I know are board members here. And I simply click on save, and that's now set up. So you can see that the teams are actually managed back through the organization profile. So when I go into the permission levels, and a question that agencies ask us is, some person can see it, but some people can't. Why is that? It depends on which team people are actually in their roles. Now, the really good thing about this is if Tony decides to up and leave next week, and let's say Barney then comes in and fills Fred's role, well, what happens? Essentially, you don't need to then go back and change every single permission level within the system, because remember I said at the start, Jemba is based on a person's position. So Barney, who's now come into Fred's role, will simply inherit all of Fred's permissions, and then he can carry on the work that Fred did, and essentially all that knowledge hasn't walked out the door, because all, whether you have contracts or policy, and I'll get to these in a minute, are then assigned back to Barney in that case. And that is something that we will carry forward in the upcoming weeks. So permission levels in Gemba Docs are managed through this side here. You can manage people individually and look at those, or quite simply, you can do it via team. Most people, to start off with, will do it via team, and they'll just go, right, all staff have access to policies, procedures, and no access to everything else. The board members, if I go into here, for example, and I just created the board of management group as well too, on this system as well too. So what we'll find, if I go into this as well too, and I refresh the page, what I've got now is the board of management team now appearing. And I can then go and update them and just give them access to, right? I want to make sure that the board have literally no access to everything down here, but you know what? I do want them to actually have access to just their board of management minutes and nothing else. So I can essentially go in and mark this up and give them only access to this one here, which is what we want to see. So you can manage that directly out of here as well too. Now, when we go into Gemba Docs and you want to simply load a document in, quite simply to do this, let's go in. I've got a new policy that I want to load in. So how do I do this? Quite simply, let's say I've got a new deed of delegation document. So I could go into the governance folder. I simply click on upload file. And in this case, I'm going to say deed of delegation. And I've got my updated policy. Actually, I'll call it a procedure that the board are working on. And I'll call it board of directors, because this is what we have here. So the document name is what people will search for the document on. The document description is what gives it, it's what helps the search function in Gemba. From here, I'm going to then list it as a policy document. I'm going to mark that it's being reviewed and essentially have the start date from today. Just for demonstration, I'm going to set the review date Monday next week, and the end date I'm going to make the 31st of March, just to show you how this works. Now, in this case, I'm going to assign it to Stuarto, and Fred is going to be the person responsible for it. And quite simply, all I'm going to do from here is then also upload the document. Now, I can click on choose file at the top, select my policy, and simply click on upload and save. Now, what this does is brings up the document here, and I can actually view it. If I wanted to go in on the icons on the on the right hand side here, you can see that I can download the document because I've got read-write access. I can view the document details, which gives me the details of who actually logged it in, who actually changed it, what changes were there. It also gives me the archive logs, and I'll show you what ones look like, of the file version and due date and the likes. I can also, if I've got permission levels, to actually move the document. So if I thought, oh, look, this doesn't actually belong here, then I can actually click on, actually, let me go back. I can actually click on the move file, and I can actually then move it to a different folder in the Gemba Docs section. And this gives me that capacity to do that. If I wanted to modify the file, I can simply click on modify, and it'll bring up this entry here. Now, with it, what we do have is also the function to archive, and that's that little box here. And if I wanted to go, oh, look, I accidentally made a mistake, I'm going to archive this file, and you can see it's thrown out down the bottom. If I have permissions and I wanted to unarchive it, then I can simply unarchive it, and it'll appear here. So you can see by actually loading the documents in, it's as simple as that. Finding the folder that you want, clicking on upload, and selecting the document. Now, there has just been a question on here to say, what if we don't want the document to be reviewed? What if it's a procedure and we've just got a start date but no end date of a document? Well, quite simply, click on the review document, and that'll actually remove it off, that grays it out, so you can't actually change it, and it'll just give you the start date only. And quite simply click on upload, and that changes it for you. And it's really as simple as that. Now, if there was a new document, let's say I've got a new document that that the board have just signed off on, and now I actually want to update it in Gemba Docs. Well, I can quite simply find this document that I have here, go into modify, and all I'm going to do is save a document straight over the top. So I simply click on upload the document. Here we are here. I'm going to update the new version of this document. And when I click on upload and save again, it will automatically load in the new version of this document. Now, I will add that the previous versions of this document, and someone just said, yes, you've successfully done it, which it will appear at the top here. Now, once we've done that, a question that people have is, where does it go? Where does the previous version of the document go? So if I go, oh my goodness, what have I just done? I've just saved over the top of this document. Now, where do I find the previous version? Well, if I go into this procedure document and I click on the eye icon, what comes up is the pop-up screen of the activity logs, okay? And I've just clicked on the eye icon on the right-hand side, and this brings up this pop-up screen here. It gives me the archive logs, it gives me the activity logs of who's done what and when to the document, and the time, literally down to the second. And now what I've also got at 2:03 p.m., a new version of the document was loaded in, and here it is here. So the previous version of the document, I can go back and have a look here. And someone just said, what happens if we have literally hundreds of documents? It doesn't matter. There's some agencies that have thousands of, every time they change a policy, they save it on here and it will keep a record of it. So literally thousands of versions of different policy documents that you can see here that's loaded on Gemba. So with it, there are a range of different functions that you can then have. It gives you the option to be able to actually create any of these documents. It gives you the power to actually upload and change any of the documents, and it'll actually give you the activity logs of what you've done. Now, one of the things that you can do on Gemba that is a new function is make it what we call a public document. Now, an example of this is, let's say I've got this delegation of procedure document here. And in this case, I'm actually just going to change this document and say, right, I actually want to make this public. I actually want to put a document on my website or push it out through social media, or actually just send it in an email to staff around the agency. Now, if I click on public document, all that does, and again, just remember, it's only if you've got the ability to modify these files can you do this. So if it now comes up that there's a public document link that you can see down the bottom here. Now, there's a couple of ways that we can reach this. Now, if I take this document and all I'm going to do from here is open up a new browser, okay? And if I paste that in, that link that I've just copied in here, what will open up is the policy document that I've just loaded in. But what's important is that if I put this link, and I'll show you this side of it, or why so many agencies are liking this new function. If I go and put this into, let's say, our social media page, and I want to make a privacy policy public, I can simply create this link, create a post, and say, new privacy policy, and load that link in there. And what will come up is a preview screen. Now, for all of you, rather than, and I said at the start that Gemba is designed as a single source of truth. Now, if you put this document, let's say it's your privacy policy, and you put this on your Facebook site or social media site, your website, send it round to people, put it on your public-facing website as well. but you don't want to keep changing the document. So you could have literally 15, 20, or 24 links out there of the document. What Gemba will do is that when you update the new document in here and update the new policy document, so let's say I had a privacy policy that I then update tomorrow, what it'll do is that public document link will update with the latest version of this document so that you don't have to literally then run around and change everything again. And it makes it so much easier to be able to actually run around and make all the changes within your links, your public documents, without having to literally run around and change your website and social media page and anywhere else that you've had that link. And it makes it super efficient to be able to do this. Now, if I wanted to go, right, I actually don't want this now publicly available to anyone, rather than even going out and changing and removing it off your website and your Facebook page, trying to work out, my goodness, where have people put this document out there in the public, so to speak, I can simply go in and unclick the public document, upload and save this, and it's gone. What it'll do is on the public document link as well too, if we go back here, it'll say this document is now unavailable from this agency. And so if I go to click on this link now and update it, what you'll find is that quite simply, it comes up with this document is now not available. So it becomes very, very easy for yourselves to be able to manage your documents directly through the Gemba dashboard. Now, the other ones that we did have around this, which will lead into the contract side, is around your contracts reporting. So if I click on Gemba Docs here, and I'm going to now go into, let's say, the contracts register. The contracts register is where your, let's say, FARSs and leases can be put in. We've just made in a few things here, and I'll just load it in a document within here for testing. Now, what makes the contract different to a policy document is if I log in here and I've selected the option for contract, a contract table now appears. The contract table allows me to literally take apart every single type of contract that there is. It doesn't matter whether it's a lease, or it doesn't matter whether it's a funding agreement or a license or a contract note for having car service. Any type of contract that your agency has can be managed in Gemba. And this leads into the e-signature part of the discussion as well. So with it, essentially, when you place in a contract, you have the start date, you have the review date, and you have the end date. You have the person that's responsible for it. And essentially on the review date, an email gets sent out to this position here. And if it's not actioned a week before the end date, then this person gets notified. Separately, there might be individual staff within your agency that you specifically want to follow things up. So it might be, for example, for a mental health service, and I'm just using an example here, where you have to extract a data set to submit to, let's say, a PHN or a funding body or the department or the likes. Well, in this case, I've got the review date set for today, due date set for this, for the end of the month. It's going to Fred, and if it's not actioned a week before the due date, it'll automatically send this quality officer a email notification. And so that's how the contracts register part of the system works. Again, if anything changes, there's audit logs left behind of what's being changed and when, and you can see that here. So it doesn't matter. The idea of this whole system is that it's flexible and it will give you the information that you need. And again, it works in exactly the same way to the policy register, in that if you had new documents, you can load them straight over the top. So if you had funding and service variations, if you had a new lease or a variation to an MOU, all of those documents you can simply load in straight over the top and save it. And it'll give you the latest version of that document when you go into this particular section here. And you can go back and actually have a look at the archive logs. Now, what is coming up, and I'm sure a lot of people are going to ask for this question, is how do we actually manage our signatures if we want to get people outside the agency to sign off on documents, or even internally within the agency? So let me walk you through this section here. What you will find opening up this month for you is the ability to have e-signatures on your documents. You can literally select where you want the signature to go. So with it, you can have, if you have the permission in Gemba to do it, you can select allow signature and you'll have the button selected here. What this allows you to do is then open this up and this tab will be viewed. And you can see that you get signature requests. Now from here, you can actually define who you want to sign off on these different documents. So you can list it and you can see that we've got a whole range of people and also teams as well too. Or you can actually set them to individual people that are outside your agency and ask them to sign the document. And you can select where you want on the document it to be signed as well. And we've got a few people here that we've just listed. Now, if I select Studo, essentially I can now select where I want on the document for him to sign it. I'm just going to click on save. And once we've done that, we can then click on send signature request emails. What this will automatically do for you is once you've set that up, it will then, you click on send and it'll automatically send an email out directly to people to say, hey, look, you need to sign this document. Now, the great thing is, if people have access to their access Gemba via their mobile device or emails via their mobile device, then what they can do is actually sign off on it on their mobile device. And once they do that, it'll go directly back into this section here. And you can then have the ability to download the actual signed agreement once it's done. You can then track all of the people that you might have that need to sign a document. And we use this for property settlements. We actually use this for deeds of delegation by boards and tenders and a whole range of different documents like that. When we do company secretariat work and we need membership sign off, we'll often create a team and send it out to the whole membership group, asking them to sign off on the documents. Now, importantly, other people can't see who's signed off on the document. They're responsible for signing it themselves if they want to do so. So it gives you that also that degree of privacy from a document management control. But it is one of the most significant changes that we've made to Gemba Docs in years. And it's that ability to be able to actually view it, to view the details, to carry the signatures through, to actually request signatures from people, and also the option to send it blankly to all people that require the signature to be logged as well. And of course, you've got the options to go back and see who's actually signed off on the document and when. Now, the very last thing that I wanted to create, that I wanted to remind you on Gemba is about the reporting side. The reporting side on Gemba can be done essentially in two ways. Now, on this, if I go into the compliance calendar and click on the compliance calendar, what you'll find here is that all of the contracts and policies is managed and can be managed directly out of the compliance calendar. Now, if I go back to the slides, let me just bring this up for you. What we covered off is around this section here, and it's the link to the compliance calendar. And then I'll be moving to the notice board for the Gemba Docs and notifications. Now, the compliance calendar, when I bring this up, it shows me, and we'll have a separate session here, is a list of all of the contracts and policy reporting. So if I wanted to go in and go, look, I need to generate a policy register for our agency, I can simply type on policy register and all my policies will come up and give me a status report of exactly where they're at. If I wanted to go back and also, let's say, do the same thing for contracts as well too, I can go back, I can open up the calendar again. I can type in the word, for example, contract, And when I search for contract, what comes up is a list of my contracts that I've got on here as well too. So you can see that we've got the options around this. Now, when I open up the contracts, if I go back one step, and let's say I've got a couple of items that I've shown you around the policy documents, okay? So the policy documents you saw generates a compliance calendar entry. You'll find that in the calendar, if I've got something to do, it'll send off a notification. And look, at the end of the day, a lot of people go, what's the point on having the document side? I just want, if I need to do something, I'll do it via the policy area. So this is, for example, if I go into, let me go back one step and I'll pull a policy document here. Here we are here. And I'll have it. So I'm going to say, I'm actually working on this. And I'm going to say it will be ready by tomorrow and completed. So I can leave file notes on here of how my new policy is traveling. It means then that when the management group go and print something off, they can actually go in and see when I've done it and what I've done. Now, if I wanted to link back, I can also view the privacy policy in the Gemba Docs by simply clicking on here. It'll jump me back to the policy, to the Gemba Docs entry. And if I wanted to go back, I can go back to the calendar. So you'll find that the calendar side links to a lot of the works that we do. We'll have a separate session on this, but I'm just going to park it here to show you how this works. Now, one of the things that agencies really want to use the document system for, in this particular round, board of management agendas and also policy documents. So if I wanted to send out a, let's say, a new policy to somebody, and I'm going to say, look, I'm going to select the all staff team here. And I also, let's say I wanted to include Fred as an example. And I'm going to say, hey guys, look, could you read a new policy on the privacy for clients? And I'll show you how this works. I'm going to choose a Gemba Docs file by simply clicking on Gemba Docs, or I can add an attachment directly from my computer. In this case, I'm going to choose a Gemba Docs file, and it opens up with all the Gemba Docs folders. Now, very quickly, I'm going to say, please read this document. Now, when I click on Post New Notice, what comes up is that you'll see that I've got a new document that's loaded in here. And also what I do have, what I've just received also is a email that says, if I bring this back, here we are here. Here's something that's posted on the compliance notice board, and it's asked me to read this document, okay? So I can click on this link if I've already got it open, or I'm now in here and I can see that I've got it here. So I am on the notice board and I can read this here. So I'm going to read this notice. If I wanted to have a look at it, it'll actually preview up for me to view, and here it is here. And I can have a read of it and make sure that I've read it. Now, what you are expected to do, and other people are expected to do, is to confirm that they've read it. And I know auditors love this. Essentially, I can see that on this date and at this time, Fred's read the email, it's read in one notice, and it's been marked off his list. What a lot of agencies also use this for is for board minutes and agendas. So they will actually go in, they will post a notice, they'll select, and I've just created the board of management team. So here they are here, and say, hello, new agenda and minutes. And I can say, in this case, April's minutes and agenda is now available. And in this case, I'm just going to pick up a file that I've loaded into Gemba Docs before. Here's a document. And let's say I've got this. Now I click on Post a Notice. And it doesn't appear on my notice board because it's gone to the board members. It doesn't go to anybody else except their Gemba notice board. So that's why it doesn't appear on my notice board. I can, however, go into the notice register, and this is where it is important. It's linked to Gemba Docs. And I can then go in and see who's read it. Now, this is a fascinating thing that you'll find that we're finding a lot of agencies are using, where they want to make sure that board members are actually reading agendas and minutes before coming into their meetings. And then you can get them to even sign the document using the e-signatures as well too. So you'll find in Gemba and the Gemba doc section, the capacity of this system is incredibly broad. You can use it for running your reports across the different groups. You can use it when we look at the entire life cycle of the document itself, from composing policies, contracts, board agendas and minutes, approving if you need people to sign off on different documents or agendas. It doesn't matter what the type of document is. If you need to archive the document, you can do that. If you wanted to reorganize the folders and containers, you can do that. If you wanted to set the specific permission levels, you can do that as well too. So the Gemba dashboard itself, again, can actually be accessed, can actually be completely controlled by your agency. And it doesn't matter how many documents you've got on the system, that it is literally unlimited. Now, I'm more than happy to open up the phone lines and answer any questions that people might have. I can see that there are a few coming through around this. We will stop the recording here, but just to say, we will be loading this webinar into the Gemba College training sessions. It will form part of the works that we are doing for agencies. And if you are watching this recording after today's live session, then by all means, please email us or give us a call on 1300 360 360. So